name is Heather McGee, and this is the Happily Never After, a podcast that explores how life's endings can lead to a personal breakthrough. Because sometimes the end is just the beginning. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Happily Never After, a podcast where we explore how life's endings can lead to a new beginning. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to rate, review, and follow us wherever you are listening or watching the show today. Our guest is L'Oreal Thompson-Payton. L'Oreal is a best-selling author, award-winning journalist, keynote speaker, and the founder of LT in the City Media. She is also the founder and owner of Zora's Place, which is a Black feminist bookstore and community hub rooted in sisterhood, storytelling, and self-care. L'Oreal, I'm so pleased to welcome you to the show.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Now, today we're talking about your journey through infertility, which is ongoing. You're even writing a book about it. Can you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah, so it is very arduous and also not that different from, I feel like, what a lot of Black women of color experience in this, wonderful healthcare system we have in America. So even dating back to when I was a teenager, I've always had very painful and heavy periods. Like I remember when I was 16 and Christmas morning and I was in the fetal position, just in so much pain. So then, of course, we go to the gynecologist. They prescribe birth control because that's like the universal answer to everything having to do with the uterus, apparently. And so that was that until my husband and I got married a few years later, wanted to start trying to grow our family. And even then, I kind of like pushed it off for a while because I just knew, again, in this culture, in this society, like America does not like working mothers at all, working parents in general, but especially, when it comes to maternity leave and just all of those sort of things. So I wanted to be at a point in my career where I felt accomplished enough that I could take a step back and re-enter without like too much chaos or loss of salary as well. And I sometimes wonder, like, okay, well, did I wait too late? Like, is it my fault? Because when we started, well, actually, I had surgery in 2017 to remove fibroids because I had been having super heavy periods, like ultra tampon, 1 hour, being through overnight pads. It was just like, I don't know if that's TMI, but like, I just want to paint a picture of how like gruesome it was, honestly. Like I'm missing out on friends' weddings because I can't leave the bathroom,
Yeah.
camping trips and all of that. And the doctor told me that they ended up removing about 17 fibroids. And he told us then, like, if you want to have a baby, like, you need to get pregnant now, basically, while you have a clean slate, essentially.
Wow, that is stressful.
Right,
Right
exactly.
now.
We were in a one bedroom, and I was at a nonprofit at the time. Like the circumstances just weren't ideal. But then fast forward to when we do start trying a few years later. And typically, they say to wait a year or so before reaching out. But within 6 months, I was like, I know my body. I know something's not right. And we went back to that same doctor. He did the testing on both of us. My husband was fine. It turned out my tubes were blocked, most likely from scar tissue from the fibroid surgery. And then that just led to a snowball of other events where he's like, your best chance of conceiving is IVF. It was just like very straightforward 2-minute conversation that just upended our lives. And because at that point I was like, well, that's only for celebrities. We don't have an extra 20,000 just lying around
Right.
in our bank account. So it felt like our hopes and dreams of becoming parents was over before it even began.
That is a lot to deal with. And I'm sure, I did IVF as well. And it is, I don't know, for people who haven't gone through it, IVF is so hard. It is so expensive. There's no guarantee it's going to work. And it is arduous for whoever is the target of the shots and the
Right.
ultrasounds. I think, yeah, just even the number of ultrasounds, like someone said something like, oh, I had to do a internal ultrasound and it was so terrible. And I was like, girl, I've done over 100. I don't want to hear it.
Yep, exactly.
Now, you are currently writing a book titled Infertile
Yes.
Black Girl, which is due for
Mhm.
release next year. Why did you
Yes.
want to write this book?
Throughout our infertility journey, I just never saw myself represented. So in the fertility clinics, it was all just very white. Oftentimes, we were the only Black couple in there. Even the little, I call it like the bulletin board of success that had all the babies, that were born through there, didn't feature any Black or brown babies. And so it takes infertility, which is already this very isolating journey, and then like compounds it because now you're looking around and you don't see anyone who looks like you. A lot of the forums online are also geared toward white women. And so I was just wanting to write the book that I needed. It had a couple of different titles and iterations. In the beginning, one was like Infertile Ground, The Messy Middle, and Beth and Fran at Bookbound Podcast have, as part of their Substack, a feature where you can submit your synopsis and kind of like workshop your book idea. And they kind of give me some pushback on the title about like, well, that's, not specific enough, and how can we make it pop more? And I feel like honestly, just like out of nowhere, one day I'm putting my daughter to sleep and it was like Infertile Black Girl, because I mean, that's what we're talking about here. It is as simple and as complicated as that. And so they have a really great exercise in there. And I promise they're not paying me to say any of this. um, but they have a really wonderful ebook that is like how to write a nonfiction book proposal. And within that, there is an exercise where they advise authors to write a letter to their muse, like for the book. And it was both a younger version of me and also women that I've met along the way, especially in fertility groups that are geared toward Black women and women of color. And so this is my love letter to them and letting them know that you're not alone. And also, it doesn't end with the baby, right? Like I went through postpartum depression, anxiety, had perinatal depression while I was pregnant, and just everything that comes with it. So we think that, you have the baby, everyone lives happily ever after. That's not necessarily always the case. There's a lot of mental health that comes into it as well. And then also along those same lines, as a Black woman, we're getting better, I feel like, in our community about mental health. But I know when I started therapy back in 2016, my aunt was like, oh, you don't need to do that. You have a husband and family and friends who love you. And I was like, I never said I did.
Yeah.
But it was very much, like pray about it, even during our fertility journey. And I was like, I can do both. We're going to
Yeah.
pray about it. I'm going to go to therapy and also the doctors who know what they're doing. So, yeah, that's kind of how it all came together.
Was there was there a point where you maybe let go of the outcome? Like you're going to do everything you can, and if the outcome wasn't, I almost think for mental health, especially for in the infertility department, you can't control what happens at the end.
Yeah.
How did you manage your own mental health?
A lot of therapy, a lot of prayer, a lot of support groups online. Infertile AF is one that I joined, Fertility for Colored Girls as well, which is actually based out here in Chicago. And to the point about like just giving up control or, like releasing ties to the outcome when we had the fifth cycle, which is actually the one where our daughter was conceived. Going into that, we were just like, let's get this over with. Like we had to do another, the insurance company wanted to see two um, embryo transfers with genetically tested normal embryos before they would cover the biopsy and the testing that would be needed to, I know, right? It's just like
God, so much money.
awful. So much money for not even a guarantee. So, like, going into it, we were really, optimistic at first. Like, we followed all the rules, we did all the things. Of course, it's going to, result in a baby. In that first cycle where it didn't happen really crushed me. I was just like, I've been, the straight A student, valedictorian, followed all the rules, honor roll, like the do good firstborn older daughter followed the rules and like stayed a path and did all the things that I was supposed to do. And I was shocked when it didn't work. Like I didn't even know that that was an option. And I think I read or I found online like um interview that self or some like outlet did with Chrissy Teigen, and she talked about how their first cycle didn't work either. So I was like, okay. But then like the second, the third, there was one even that was canceled because there was too much fluid in the uterine lining, which I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing that could happen. And so by the time we got around to this fifth one, it was just like, let's just hurry up, get it over with. We didn't even tell our family or friends that we were doing it. Up until that point, we were keeping them up to date, like at every sort of milestone. And that was the other crushing thing. So, like, not only are we receiving the bad news when they call and say that, it didn't take, now we have to relay it to our loved ones as well. So, we didn't think that this was going to work. And so, we were literally shocked into silence when they called
Yeah.
and said that it was positive. But even then, it was like, okay, and now you have to come back on. It was a Friday. I had to go back Monday, and the like ACG needs to double, and like all these acronyms that you are just like flying at you, and you're not in the clear because now we have to come back 3 weeks in a row for them to monitor, everything. And it's just like you think you've reached the finish line, and there's a whole nother marathon in front of you.
Yeah. I'm curious how, once pregnancy happened for you, did you struggle to enjoy your
Yes.
pregnancy?
Yes, the whole way through, honestly. And I actually writing in the book, there's a instance where we were at Bye Bye Baby. And because my husband was very into it, he had the spreadsheets, was watching the YouTube reviews of the strollers, and everything was just like all about it. I was afraid of the other shoe dropping. Like my body has betrayed me every time up until then. Like, why would now be any different? And I was afraid to allow myself to feel that joy because what if it gets taken away from me? And so we go into the Bye Bye Baby, and immediately I'm overwhelmed. Like, and also up until then, I was like Googling everything in incognito mode because I had read about somebody who was pregnant and then had a miscarriage. But of course, our phones are always listening and the algorithm and everything, and they kept getting ads. And I was like, I don't want that to happen. I was trying to
Yes.
control it like as much as possible. And we go into Bye Bye Baby, and he's like, oh, let's try out some strollers. Like, maybe that'll help you feel better. And I like had a whole, I call it literally in the book, like the Bye Bye Baby meltdown because
Yeah.
I was like, no, if I touch this stroller, then it becomes real. And if it becomes real, then the possibility of loss is even bigger.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I feel like honestly, up until the moment that she was born, like holding my breath the entire pregnancy.
Yeah, I bet. Well, something I want to ask you about there, you wrote in one of your articles. So L'Oreal has written many articles that anyone
Yes.
can Google and read for yourself. But one of your articles, you shared a statistic that 11% of U.S. women within reproductive age have experienced fertility issues. However, Black women are around twice as likely to experience infertility compared to white women. Can you share some more context around that statistic?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to, what I was mentioning about fibroids, that I don't know the exact science, right? But I feel like my mom had them and my
Yeah.
cousins and my aunts. Like it seems to be hereditary. It seems to be more prevalent in Black women as well. There's some studies I remember seeing that were relating, getting relaxers and different like hair chemicals, kind of that maybe relaying to uterine cancer or causing fibroids as well. And so there's just so much, I think, culturally, but then also the stigma of reaching out. And, I, as you mentioned, write a lot of articles, a lot of had to do with mental health and wellness. And I know when I first started, my mom is like, why are you putting all your business on the internet? And it's like, because I know how lonely I felt when I'm doing my Googles and researching and everything, and I'm coming up empty on different experiences. I don't want other women, period, to experience that. And especially Black women. And one of the most popular articles, the one that I get the most DMs about, even to today, is an article that I wrote about having had those 4 failed IVF cycles and the lessons that I learned from that. And it's like, I know exactly what I don't know exactly, but I can imagine what leads someone to that article. You're up 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. You just got the news that another cycle failed. You're feeling lonely, depressed, miserable, isolated, and you're searching on Google and that article pops up. But then beyond that, I think what happens is people then Google me or look at my Instagram, and then they see my daughter and they're like, oh my gosh, it happened for you. Like you didn't give up. And that gives them hope. So that is why I'm so public about it, so open about our journey. Even just recently, this couple of weeks ago, I think it published for self. a story about secondary infertility because that's something else. I think naively, I thought, well, of course, because we had IVF for the first one, like naturally. But I learned, like, the doctors told me, like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's anyone who struggles to have another child, even if they have a living one. And just the kind of like gray area and the in between with that, because, you don't really fit in with the, traditional infertility groups because you have a child. And then yet also in like a lot of my mom groups, everyone has their, family of four. And so they can't really like relate. And so you feel like you're on an island. And I think that going back to, your question about why more prevalent in Black women, the not only just the health issues and also like doctors not believing Black women. It took me 3 years to get proper diagnosis for the fibroids in three different doctors. And I had to advocate for myself over and over and over again, even changing fertility clinics. And now we're on our third one and just like constantly having to advocate for myself. It is an access thing. It is, systemic racism at play. It's so many different reasons. And then within our own like culture and community, I think the, stereotype that Black women are hyper fertile and that's not like something that we do. No, it is. It's just people have been shamed into not talking about it. And I want to do my part to help erase that stigma.
Well, part of what I love about the work that you do is, and it's so obvious. Like, I think, this is the first time you and I have had a real conversation, but even before this is so clear, you're a community builder, with your bookstore and with this book and your mission to talk about these things that people don't
Mhm.
talk about. I just believe so hard that, like, I wish more people would talk about these things because it's an
Yeah.
opportunity for connection. And, living in that cave with these really hard things of life all by yourself, that sounds terrible. And I know not
Yeah.
everybody has access to these communities. So I think it's
Mhm.
amazing that you do this.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. So you mentioned this a little bit earlier. You, on top of all of this, you
All
also
the things.
experienced postpartum depression.
Mhm.
Can you kind of explain to anyone who doesn't know what that is and what was that experience like?
It was hell. I mean, honestly, in short, and also just, I mean, I didn't feel like myself. And it started during pregnancy. And I had heard about, postpartum depression going into everything and thought that, okay, that's something obviously in its name happens after. Like, what is this that I'm experiencing now? And in the book, I also refer to it as a three-layer depression cake. So on top of everything else, we also had the brilliant idea to move to Ohio during the pandemic, during the pregnancy, because we thought that, you have to be close to family when you have your own family. And that's what our parents did before us. And we just were moving ahead, full speed. And so the first layer was just that like depression and leaving Chicago and my friends in the community that I had built there. Really came into my own here, was just like really torn about that because even though my husband's college roommates are all in Ohio, it's a big state. So everyone was like an hour in different directions, not super easy to like, oh,
Yeah.
let's like meet up for coffee or whatever. Then the second layer was the perinatal and the postpartum depression. And I've been going back looking at journal entries from that period as I'm writing the book. And my heart breaks for that version of myself. Just so sad all the time, crying inexplicably, don't want to get out of bed, not enjoying the things that I used to. And the anxiety part, as far as, having those multiple cycles beforehand, afraid of what's going to happen. Am I going to be able to carry this baby to term? And then you throw on top of that also the maternal mortality rate with Black women in America, too. So that's always like humming in the background of like, okay, am I even going to survive this? And it was just a lot to carry. I felt alone. I didn't have my community there in Ohio. We're also living with my in laws, whom I love. And also, that's just a very difficult scenario for anyone, especially when you are very pregnant and you're a first time mom. I told my husband it felt like we were living inside of a fishbowl, honestly. Like we're doing the most important job, the hardest job, arguably, that will ever do without a manual, without any kind of training in front of a live studio audience. And it's like, and people have opinions and you are second guessing yourself and just feeling very unsure. And it was just a very dark period. And I knew that I didn't feel like myself. I actually failed. Well, my therapist is helping me reframe. It's not pass fail, but the postpartum screening that they give you at the hospital before you're discharged. I even remember like, how honestly do I answer these questions? Because if I'm super honest, are they going to take my baby away from me? Like, am I going to be allowed to leave with her? And even then, I still scored very high. And the social worker was like, okay, like, are you going to be okay? What measures do you have in place? And again, me being the type A, I've got a plan, I've got it all under control, was like, don't worry, I'm doubling down on therapy. I'm going once a week now instead of every other week. I've joined some virtual support groups. I'm trying to talk myself into it as well. And even at the 6 week follow up, they gave me the assessment again, and I failed again. And my OB was like, I can give you something for this. And I was like, no, it's fine. It's okay. Like, and again, heartbreaks for that version of me because I even remember writing, I read this recently in a journal entry. I was like, therapy's not working, yoga's not working, meditation's not working. I'm like, I've tried everything but medication. And I want to say to that version of myself, just like, take the damn pills. It's okay. And again, going back to that stigma and mental health in the Black community, especially, and living with your mother in law and who's telling you, oh, you don't need that. And it's like, okay, maybe I don't. And, you're just feeling very unsure and uneasy, and I'm very anxious. And there was another instance, middle of the night, where nursing, because I feel like I saw times on the clock that I'd never seen before when we were breastfeeding. I was just like, what is it? What's going on? You're exhausted. You're already just like hormone levels all over the place. And my brain had convinced me that my family would be better off without me. I was like, hey, if I put her back in the bassinet now and I get in the car, I was like, I'm 6 hours to my family in Maryland or 6 hours to our friends back in Chicago, but they're better off without me. Like, I'm too sad to do this. I'm bringing everyone down. Like, it's just that. And the thing is, it also like continued past, I thought there's no expiration on postpartum. It's forever, honestly. But even like a couple of years later, when I found a different therapist who has experience with infertility and IVF and is also a Black woman. And it was in working with her and then eventually seeing a psychiatrist. I went because I thought that I maybe had undiagnosed ADHD. And after the assessment, the psychiatrist was like, no, what I'm seeing here is just like untreated anxiety and lingering depression. And I was like, and at that time, I think I was like maybe two or so, but I had just like those wanting to leave, wanting to run away, the anxiety, especially when I went back to full time work. And it's just a very lonely, dark space, and everyone expects you to be happy because, this is a joyous occasion. And it is. And also, your hormones are out of whack. You are sleep deprived. And so you feel guilt. I felt tremendous guilt because, especially given our journey, like, oh, I should be like super grateful
Yeah.
for, her being here. And that was just, you're not allowing yourself to feel the full spectrum of your emotions. Like, you're still human. You can hold both grief and gratitude at the same time. And just because you went through a challenging journey to have a family doesn't make your emotions and your concerns and your anxieties even less valid. So it was just it was a dark period, and I look at pictures of myself back then, and it's just, like, dead behind the eyes, like, I don't recognize that girl at all, and my heart goes out to her because, I just yeah, didn't know what I know now, and shout out to Zoloft because I was like, "This is how
Yeah.
people feel every day?" Oh my gosh, it was like
What is this? I feel
yeah,
almost normal.
exactly, yeah.
Well, I'm kind of getting emotional listening to you talk about this because I feel like this is something that is somewhat of a universal experience of, especially maybe for type A sorts of people who go through
Mhm.
infertility. Your brain knows this is not your fault. This is not something
Mhm,
your fate, when you're talking about pass fail, your brain knows that's true. But
yeah.
somehow it is so deeply internalized, like, this is all my fault. I'm ruining
Mhm.
it. I am, and then when you get it and then it is so hard, like with postpartum depression, then you're like, "Oh, well, now I can't complain." Like it's just we are so
Mhm.
hard on ourselves. And I had a similar experience at my doctor recently because I've been having panic attacks and anxiety and not
Yeah.
sleeping. I told her what was
Oh, I'm
going on. I was like,
sorry.
"Well,
Yeah.
that's just how it is." And she was like, "We can help you with that." Very similar to yours. And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Mhm.
Now, one of your articles that you had a title that I thought was really compelling. Black moms feel pressure to be twice as good. I'm trying to
Mhm.
change that, which is related to
Mhm.
this conversation we're in the middle of. Can you say more about
Yeah.
what you meant?
Yes, so that honestly, I think came to me during daycare pickup and drop offs. I would go, my husband and I would take turns, alternate back when he was still working from home, even like the hybrid schedule. And I was like, oh, I have to have my wedding band on so that they know I'm not, a single Black mom because that carries so much stigma. And now I'm like, F it, I don't care. Like I'm rolling up there in
Yeah.
yoga pants, hot mess and everything, whatever. And there's just that double standard that Black women are held to across the board in our professional lives, in our personal lives, certainly as moms, like we don't get the same grace that white women do. If we fail or if we do something wrong, or if our kid is acting out, oh my gosh, you're such a bad mother. Other people's like, "Oh, she's having a hard time." Like, "It's okay." And so I put that pressure, yes, on myself and also as like society as well. I reference in my first book, Stop Waiting for Perfect, the scene with Olivia Pope and her dad where he's like really laying into her for sleeping with the president. I mean, that's fair. And also, I
Wild
mean,
scenarios.
exactly, yeah. Was like, I raised you better than this, and you know that you have to be twice as good to get half as much, and that is a lesson that I don't know a single Black person in America who can't relate to that, and also with Black women especially, I mean, like, let's just look at the 2024 election here. We have literally the most qualified candidate ever and it's not enough.
Yeah.
She has more than twice the qualifications. And so that you take that this on, like a grand national global level, even if you will, and distill that down. Like that's something that I've experienced in my career as well. I mean, it was one of the reasons I left my last full time job because I had exceeded all of the benchmarks for the performance review. But at the end, it was just like met expectations. And I was just like, I'm done. I'm over it. Like
Yeah.
I've been on this hamster wheel my entire life. And it was getting to a point too, because this was pre Zoloft, where it was like, okay, baby, writing my first book and this full time job that is like just too much. One of these things got to go. I spend way too much time, energy, and money on this baby. So, not her. The book is something that I've always wanted to do. So, not that. And it's like, it's the job. My mental health is suffering. There was one time before pickup where I was just literally on my knees in the kitchen crying, sobbing, and was like, okay, I got to pull it together because I have to go pick her up because I don't want to pay those late fees. And just kind of like brush it off. But that was the sign that, A, was doing too much and also was just not in a great space. And so, yeah, it's just something that I've been trying to decondition, I guess, myself from that like
Yeah.
twice as good and just being like, this is what I have to offer. And that has to be enough because I no longer have twice to give. And more than that, I want to set a different model for my daughter. And so, like, I'm not blaming my mom. I know that she did the best that she knew how to, given the time and circumstances and everything, and wanting me and my sister to succeed. And also, I can sit at a place of privilege because of the sacrifices that she made and her mom before her, and so forth and so on. But I want different for my
Yeah.
daughter. I don't want her to think that struggle and overwork and overwhelm and stress and anxiety is normal. That is part of my mission, honestly, as a mom, as a Black mom in particular, to a Black daughter, is to show her a different way to model rest for her and self care and just, yeah, all of those mindfulness kind of things that I do now, but when I was younger, absolutely had no clue. It was just like
Yeah.
overwork was all I knew. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think you're hitting on something that has become a little bit of a movement. A lot of women our age, and everyone can Google this, so I'm not just
Mhm.
making this up. Women of our generation are really starting to opt out because, whether due to racism or sexism or both at the same time,
Mhm.
yeah, you're 2 or 3 times as good, and for what? And they're just opting out. I just think it's really interesting that women are starting to walk away and
Mhm.
just not participate in that system, which I think is pretty cool. I mean, it's scary to do, and not
Yeah.
everybody's in a position to be able to do
Oh,
that.
absolutely. Yeah. 100% scary. I mean, shout out to my husband holding it down at the corporate 9 to 5. And so we have health insurance. And so that I'm able to live out my dreams and creative, pursuits and all of that. And also, I'm like, no job is worth your mental health. And
Yeah,
it is becoming increasingly difficult for people to have, and there's no such thing as work life balance, but still, like, you want some kind of sanity, right? You want to be
yeah,
able to, okay, I get the call in the middle of the day from daycare. She has a fever and I have to go pick her up. Like, I don't want to be penalized at work for it. And so we need, until these workspaces, I feel like, catch up to modern day families and how they operate, and just caregivers in general. Even if you don't have kids, if you're caring for your parents or yourself, even, it just
yeah.
needs to be more flexibility in the workplace. And until it catches up, we're doing what we need to do on our own, opting out and forging a different path.
Yeah. And I love, a lot of people complain about Gen Z, but one thing I do love about them is they are so much more hardline about protecting their life
Hmm.
overall. No, they're
Yes.
not going to come to work sick. No, they're not going to
Hmm.
work, 80 hours a week for what?
Right.
And that is inspiring to me as someone who, like you, for a lot of my career was like, oh, I need to be in line. I need to sacrifice
Hmm.
myself for my job. But it inspires me that I'm hoping younger generations are setting a new path.
Yeah.
What do you wish more people understood about infertility?
My gosh. The emotional toll. I think people can understand because it's external, like the cost and the injections and the physical part and all of that. And that is all very hard, like, for sure. And if your friend has to decline your baby shower invite, don't take it personally. They're doing the best that they can. They're protecting their peace. They may still be happy for you, and also know that that's something that they cannot fully show up for in this season. And so just the understanding. And when you are expecting, I had just actually posted about this recently on Instagram, because I had several friends who, while we were going through our infertility journey, would reach out to me privately on the side, text, call, DM, or whatever. It's like, hey, before this is public, I just want to let you know that we're expecting and thinking of you. And, like, obviously, care a lot about you. And just that small, seemingly small, it's really huge, honestly, but like, outreach and care for the person goes so far. Like, it means so much. I still, like, think of those people and those messages to this day, because it acknowledges the hurt and the struggle and the journey that you're on, and not leaving you out of the conversation, or becoming blindsided by the news later, where you're forced to put on a happy face in a group setting, but on the inside you're really upset and angry, and all of those emotions are normal. The jealousy is normal. There's so much shame. Is, again, one of those things, is like, oh, we're expected to put on a happy face and be so happy for your friends. And you can do both. You can be happy for them or not, and also care for yourself. I've unfollowed so many people when we were trying, who were just like seemingly getting pregnant so easily. Like, that's the other thing. You don't know anyone else's journey unless they tell you. It's not like we walk around with a scarlet letter that says, like, I'm
Yeah.
infertile. And so it's just, yeah, you've got to do whatever you need to do to protect your peace. And so if that's declining the baby shower, you can still send a gift. If it's unfollowing or muting somebody, totally fine. And for people on the other side of that, just holding grace for people who are going through infertility. It is very challenging. Triggers are everywhere and where you least expect it. Going to the grocery store, right? And it's like, oh, wow, this person is, and I'm even facing it now at my daughter's daycare. the parents who are on their second or third child while we're struggling to have a second. And I don't know, how this um, journey is going to go for baby number two. And there's just a lot of the emotional and mental part of it, but then also don't like abandon those friends either. If you don't know what to say, your presence can still, speak volumes, and just letting them know that you're thinking about them or acknowledging, I know this is a hard time for you. If you want to like go out and get ice cream or wine or something, like let me
Yeah.
know. Just like showing up. Don't abandon your infertile friends. We still need community and or sometimes distractions too.
Yes. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I will say I think being able to let go of binary thinking is really helpful
Hmm.
too. Building on what you said, you can be really happy for your friend who's
Hmm.
expecting and then also protect yourself and acknowledge yourself, that you're having a hard time and you're really sad about it. Like two seemingly conflicting truths can be true.
Hmm.
And, sometimes women who are going through infertility, they're so hard on themselves, like, "Oh, I should
Yes.
be, happy for my friend, but I'm actually really
Mhm.
sad." And so it's kinda
Yeah.
like you abandon yourself and the
Mhm.
feelings that you're having.
Yeah, and you keep pushing them down, they're gonna come out one way or another, whether that's lashing out at
Right?
somebody, crying in the produce section, like, just allow yourself to feel those feelings, like, feelings in and of themselves are not good or bad, it's just kind of like what we do with them, but just feelings wanna be felt, so allow yourself to feel them, the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, for sure. Now, this is a show about endings and beginnings, and you have gone
Mhm.
through many endings and beginnings throughout your story. They often go hand in hand. What are some
Yes.
of the biggest lessons you've learned from the endings in your life?
That's a really great question because I historically have not been someone who's very good with change. And in my older, wiser years now, recognizing that that's inevitable is one of the things that is, one of the few guarantees in life that things are going to change. And endings don't always have to be sad. It's not always like somebody's fault. There's seasons to it and relationships that we have and different jobs that we have. And so, I mean, it sounds very like woo woo that like every ending can lead to a new and better beginning, but it's just like life is cyclical in that way. And so being able to look at something that happened, appreciate it for what it was. I just listening to a book by friend Tara Pringle Jefferson called Bloom How You Must, and it's talking about letting go of those friendships or relationships that have stayed beyond their expiration date. And I'm someone who like tries to hold on for dear life and like keep
Yeah.
the relationship going when there's a season for everyone. And my therapist also, she always tells me, she's like, you keep adding, like when the campfire is coming to an end and it starts, like you throw another log on there to try to rekindle, and it's like just let it burn, like let it go. And that's not a marker on you as a person, doesn't make you a bad person. You did not try enough, right? Like things just have different seasons, and honoring the season that you're in, I think, is something I'm still working on. And
Yeah.
acknowledging, like capacity and, what you have time for and energy. But yeah, endings can be hard. Back to the feelings, just allowing yourself to grieve the endings as well if it's something that, you're feeling some grief around. So yeah.
As we're wrapping up, I have one question for you. It's a little bit of a doozy. I always ask this
Yeah.
to every guest that comes on. Sometimes they have funny answers,
Mhm.
and sometimes they have really profound ones. And so it's just kind of interesting to see what people say. In life, what do you know for sure?
The first thing that came to mind was I love my daughter, but the immediate second was, and I'm a damn good writer. So
You are. I've read your articles and you are a damn good
thank you.
writer.
Thank you. I for sometimes there's a lot of, I'm susceptible to all of the comparison and everything online and, the bestseller list and all of the things. But yeah, along that, what I know for sure is that I am a good writer, and the people who are meant to read what I have to share will find it. And if I can just help even one person in thinking about the infertility memoir, especially like feel less alone on their journey, then it'll all be worth it.
I love it. L'Oreal, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story today. I know these things sometimes are difficult to talk about, but as you talk more and more, you connect to other
Hmm.
people, and it's so helpful to others who are going through it as well. Where
Yeah.
can people find you if they want to read more from you or
Hmm.
work with you?
Yes, I'm at LT in the City everywhere. So ltinthecity.com. You can sign up for my newsletter on Instagram and Threads mostly. And then my bookstore is zorasplace.com. And we're also Zora's Place on social media.
And Zora's Place is located in Evanston, Illinois.
Yes. Yep. Just outside of Chicago. So.
Yes, very local to me. Infertility can be such an isolating experience, so thank you for all the work you do to create community with others who are walking that road. And thank you to everyone who's listening to the Happily Never After today, especially those of you that are on your own journey. Hope you have a great week.
Thanks again for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.